Olivia Luna, 26 years old, spent long nights on duty as a security guard at an important government building in Washington, D.C. every night. As the city fell into slumber, she silently patrolled the empty hallways, with only the sound of her footsteps echoing through the stillness. The job was stable, but few paid attention to her presence. The people she protected walked past without so much as a glance, as if she were merely another part of the gray walls. Tonight was no different. Olivia wearily leaned against the reception desk, her eyes flickering to the clock. Just one more hour until her shift ended. But then, a familiar figure appeared at the end of the hallway, making her immediately straighten up. A group of people entered, led by a man no one could mistake, one of the most powerful figures in the United States. Olivia could hardly believe she was face to face with Donald Trump. She swallowed hard, trying to maintain her composure. Trump walked at a steady pace, but his gaze swept over her with an unusual sense of interest. Stopping in front of the desk, he tilted his head slightly, as if studying her more closely. "Is everything all right tonight?" he asked, his voice calm yet carrying weight. Olivia didn't know how to respond. She was used to indifferent nods, to people treating her as just another fixture of the building. But now, someone was actually asking about her, and not just anyone, but Donald Trump. She blinked, then nodded. "Yes, I'm fine." Trump frowned slightly, as if not entirely convinced by her answer. This job must not be easy. Olivia let out a small chuckle, surprised by his concern. "Well, I think everyone has their own difficult job to handle." Trump crossed his arms, studying her thoughtfully. "Maybe, but not everyone works without recognition." His words made Olivia freeze. For the first time, she felt truly seen, not just as an anonymous security guard, but as a person who had been making quiet efforts all along. Trump gave her a small nod, as if acknowledging something unspoken, then continued on his way. But Olivia remained standing there, deep in thought. Perhaps, just this small moment was enough to change how she saw herself. And for the first time in a long while, she no longer felt invisible. In the weeks that followed, Olivia began to notice something strange every time Trump visited the building. Whether for a meeting or an important event, he always took a few minutes to talk to her. At first, it was just casual questions. "How's work today?" or "Anything interesting happening?" But over time, their conversations grew longer and more meaningful. Trump wasn't just being polite. He genuinely listened. "A job like this must not be easy, right?" he had once asked her on a quiet evening when the hallway was empty. Olivia hesitated briefly before replying. "Not exactly. I like the discipline and responsibility. But sometimes, I feel like I'm stuck." Trump raised an eyebrow, signaling her to continue. She sighed softly. "I've always wanted to go further. Not just stay in this position, but aim for a role where I can make a real difference in the security industry. But sometimes, I don't know where to start." Trump stared at her, his sharp eyes reflecting a thoughtful glint. Then he smiled, a smile that was half encouraging, half challenging. "Every successful person I've ever known started at a point where they also didn't know what would come next. But they all had one thing in common: they didn't stop." Those words echoed in Olivia's mind throughout the entire evening. For the first time, she felt that the path she wanted to take was no longer just a vague dream. It could become reality if she had enough determination. That night was a long and exhausting shift. As she made her final rounds before leaving, Olivia noticed an envelope neatly placed on the reception desk. She hesitated before opening it, then froze upon seeing a generous bonus inside along with a small note. It read, "I see your effort. Don't stop." She held the note, her heart pounding in her chest. This wasn't just money, it was a message, a recognition, a reminder that someone truly saw her and acknowledged her hard work. Sitting in her car, she stared at the note in her hands. The night outside remained dark, but inside her, something had just lit up. From that moment on, the conversations between Olivia and Trump were no longer just casual exchanges. They talked about work, about challenges, about the goals she was striving to achieve. One time, Olivia confided in him about juggling her job while trying to complete her college degree. She admitted that there were moments of exhaustion when she wanted to give up. Trump nodded, not rushing to give advice. When she finished speaking, he finally responded, his voice steady. "Olivia, everyone has moments of self-doubt. But the ones who make a difference are those who don't let that doubt stop them from moving forward." She remained silent, feeling the weight in each of his words. From that day on, she didn't just talk about her dreams, she started taking action to turn them into reality. Late in the afternoon, the weak sunlight streamed through the large glass windows of the building. A meeting on security measures was in full swing. Deep voices discussing ways to improve the protection system. Amidst the intense discussions, a commanding voice spoke up. "Olivia, what do you think? Is there anything that needs to change?" Olivia was slightly startled. She hadn't expected to be asked for her opinion in such an important meeting. Looking around, she saw all eyes on her. She had never been in this situation before, a security officer being asked about security strategy? But Trump's gaze held no hint of jest. He genuinely wanted to hear what she had to say. Taking a deep breath, Olivia calmly replied, "I've noticed some gaps in the access control system. If someone is skilled enough, they could exploit these weaknesses. I think we should optimize the screening process and implement stricter surveillance measures." The room fell silent for a few seconds. Then Trump gave a slight nod, his eyes showing approval. "Go on." Seeing his interest, Olivia grew bolder in her presentation. She spoke about weaknesses in the control procedures, ways to upgrade the surveillance system to detect threats earlier. Every detail she analyzed was based on her real-world experience. Trump listened intently, occasionally nodding as if weighing every word she said. When she finished, he crossed his arms, pondered for a moment, and then said, "You have great vision. I like the way you analyze the problem." Olivia couldn't hide her surprise. This was the first time someone had acknowledged her abilities in such a way. "Write these proposals into a detailed report for me," Trump said firmly. "I want to review it seriously." Olivia's heart pounded. She hadn't expected her words to be taken so seriously. She nodded, feeling both nervous and excited. This could be her chance to prove herself. From that day on, Olivia immersed herself in work. She meticulously researched every approach, compared security systems, and sought the most feasible solutions. Late into the night, her small apartment remained brightly lit. She scrutinized every sentence, every statistic, determined to ensure her proposal was as perfect as possible. Every word she wrote carried her determination. This wasn't just a plan. It was an opportunity for her to move forward. When the report was finally complete, Olivia printed it out, checked it one last time, and headed to Trump's office. Holding the document in her hands, she felt her palms damp with sweat. What if he didn't like it? What if he thought she was just a security officer overstepping her boundaries? But when Trump took the document, he didn't just skim through it. He turned each page carefully, his eyes focused, occasionally nodding. Olivia held her breath, watching his every reaction. Finally, he put the document down and looked at her. "Excellent. You've thought this through in great detail. I'm truly impressed." Those words felt like a weight lifting off Olivia's chest. A faint smile appeared on her lips. She had been recognized. But just as Olivia was filled with hope for a brighter future, an unexpected piece of news struck her. The building management announced that they would be changing the entire security team. A private company had been hired to take over, which meant Olivia's working hours would be significantly reduced. She held the notice in her hands, feeling as though she had just been punched in the chest. She had poured her heart into this proposal, thinking it would be the turning point that would help her move forward. Yet now, she was being pushed aside as if all her efforts had meant nothing. Looking around, everything remained the same. The staff still walked about. The hallways still brightly lit as usual. But for Olivia, everything had turned upside down. She had believed she was stepping into a new path. But now, it all seemed to be closing shut before her eyes. Clutching the paper in her hand, Olivia felt her heart grow heavy. But no matter what, she couldn't let it all end here. On long sleepless nights, Olivia tossed and turned with the same question echoing in her mind. Was she on the right path? She had given her all, persevered through every challenge, but now everything seemed to be falling apart. The new security team ignored her. The things she had worked hard to build were left behind. An invisible weight pressed on her heart, leaving her unsure if she could continue. Outside the window, the streetlights shone down on the quiet streets. She sat there, her head resting against the back of the chair, eyes half closed, trying to find some peace amidst the storm inside her. The thought of giving up crept into her mind, whispering bitter words. Maybe this is the end. But at that very moment, an unexpected memory flooded back. Trump's deep voice echoed in her mind. Those who give up will never know how far they could have gone. Olivia's eyes slowly brightened. She couldn't let all those years of effort be buried just because of a few obstacles. If she gave up now, could she forgive herself for the rest of her life? The answer was clearer than ever. That evening, Olivia left the building earlier than usual. She pulled her coat tighter as the cold night wind swept by. Her heart full of conflicting emotions. She needed a sign, a direction, or maybe just a word of encouragement. Olivia. The deep voice behind her startled her. And she turned around. Trump was standing there, his gaze probing but also showing concern. She had never seen him look at her like this before. Are you okay? That simple question struck straight at the feelings she had been hiding. Olivia took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. They cut my hours. They said I'm no longer needed. She smiled faintly, but there was no joy in her eyes. I did everything I could. But in the end, no one cares. Trump was silent for a moment, his sharp gaze fixed on her as if he were assessing something important. Then he spoke slowly. Those who have true value will always find their way. Olivia let out a laugh. But this time, it was tinged with sadness. What about those who are left behind? Trump crossed his arms, thinking for a moment before suddenly asking, if you had another opportunity, would you take it? She frowned. What do you mean? He looked at her with a hint of mystery. I'm building a special team. I need people with passion, determination, and the ability to stand strong in the face of adversity. If you want to prove your worth, I have an offer for you. Olivia stood still. Was she hearing this correctly? Trump tilted his head, waiting for her response. This is not pity. I've observed you long enough to know you have potential. But the decision is yours. Her heart pounded. This opportunity could change everything. But at the same time, it was terrifying. What if she failed? What if she couldn't meet expectations? But then she realized, the scariest thing wasn't failure. It was living with the regret of never having tried. She took a deep breath, looking straight at Trump. I'm ready. A satisfied smile flashed across his face. Good. We have a lot of work to do. From that moment on, Olivia knew her life would never be the same again. From the very first day in her new environment, Olivia understood that this was more than just a job. It was a challenge to prove herself. Unlike the seasoned employees who were used to pressure, she was still learning to navigate a world filled with strategic decisions and high risks. At first, she felt out of place among experienced professionals, people who made decisive choices without hesitation. But instead of letting herself be overshadowed, Olivia chose to observe, listen, and learn. One day, Trump walked into the room while she was studying security documents. He stood with his arms crossed, watching her for a long moment before speaking. Well, are you ready to face the challenge? Olivia looked up, determination shining in her eyes. I didn't come here to stand on the sidelines. Trump gave a small smile. Good, then prove it. The following days were anything but easy. Olivia was thrown into high-pressure situations where every decision could have serious consequences. There were nights she stayed up, analyzing every detail, searching for ways to improve the system. One time, when she proposed a new idea, some colleagues were skeptical. Are you sure? The old system has been running smoothly for years. One person spoke up. Olivia clenched her hand slightly, but her voice remained steady. Stable doesn't mean it can't be better. If we don't improve, we'll be left behind. Trump watched the exchange from a distance. When everyone left, he stepped up to her. You're starting to think like a leader, he said. But to lead, you have to do more than just present ideas. You have to make others believe in them. Those words became Olivia's guiding principle. She not only worked with responsibility but also focused on building trust among her colleagues. She took time to explain, discuss, and prove every step of her ideas. And gradually, the once doubtful gazes began to change. Then the big opportunity arrived. Olivia was invited to present an important proposal at the National Security Conference. The night before the conference, she sat alone in the office, flipping through every page of her documents, checking every tiny detail. Despite being well prepared, a part of her still felt nervous. Could she really do this? As she was lost in thought, Trump walked in. He looked at her for a moment before saying, "Tomorrow, you'll stand before people who can decide the future of this entire system. But don't let that intimidate you. Remember why you're here in the first place. Olivia took a deep breath. Looking up at him, "I won't let myself be defeated." Trump nodded. "Good. Then go out there and show them what you can do." The next morning, Olivia stepped onto the stage. Bright lights shone on her, and high-ranking officials sat below, waiting. She held the microphone, took a deep breath, and began her presentation. Her voice was firm, each word clear and sharp. She didn't just talk about her solution, she demonstrated why it mattered. When she finished, the room fell silent for a moment. Then applause erupted. Trump stood behind, his eyes filled with satisfaction. As Olivia stepped down, he approached her and gave her a light pat on the shoulder. "You just made a big mark," he said, "and trust me, this is only the beginning." Olivia smiled, feeling a powerful energy ignite within her. Today, she hadn't just proven her capabilities, she had taken another crucial step on her own path. Olivia's career path continued to expand. In the past, she had only focused on security tasks. But now, her responsibilities had far exceeded anything she had ever imagined. Managing a team, making strategic decisions, and ensuring the system ran smoothly, all of it required her to be sharper and more resilient than ever. But as her position rose, so did the pressure, stacked expectations, scrutinizing gazes, and those moments when she questioned herself, "Am I really good enough to be here?" One late night, Olivia sat in her office, the warm glow of the lamp casting shadows on her contemplative face. She had given everything she had, yet it still felt like she was constantly battling something invisible, her own self-doubt. Suddenly, the phone rang. "Olivia, I want to see you." Trump's voice came through. She walked into his office, her heart heavy with thoughts. Trump sat there, his sharp gaze carrying an unusual sense of understanding. "You're doubting yourself, aren't you?" he asked directly. Wasting no time, Olivia remained silent for a moment, then nodded. Trump leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. "I used to feel the same way," he said, his voice lower. "Every time I faced a major decision, I asked myself if I was making the right choice. But I learned something. A leader isn't someone who has all the answers, but someone who dares to face the toughest questions." He looked straight at her. "Olivia, you're here not because of luck. You've proven your capability. And most importantly, you're not alone." His words sparked something inside Olivia, a small flame igniting within her. She had worked hard to get here, and there was no reason to doubt herself. She took a deep breath, her gaze more determined. "I understand. I won't let fear control me." Trump nodded approvingly. "Good, now prove it." After that conversation, Olivia didn't just regain her confidence, she became an inspiration to those around her. Within the building, younger employees began to look at her differently, with admiration and trust. They saw how she handled problems, how she made decisions, and how she always listened to her team. One day, a young female security officer approached Olivia with a hesitant expression. "Olivia, I want to advance in my career, but I feel like I don't have a chance," she said, her voice growing softer. Olivia looked at the young woman and saw herself from years ago in those eyes. She smiled and gestured for her to sit down. "I understand that feeling," Olivia said, her voice warm. "I used to wonder if I could do more, too. But then I realized that opportunities don't come from waiting, they come from stepping up and proving you deserve them." The young woman listened intently, a spark of hope flickering in her eyes. "Don't wait for someone to hand you a position," Olivia continued. "Work with everything you have. Make it impossible for them to overlook you. Make yourself the only answer to the question, who deserves this the most?" The young woman nodded, the hesitation in her eyes replaced with determination. From that day on, Olivia wasn't just a leader, she was an inspiration. Those who once stayed in the background began stepping forward. They learned to believe in themselves because they had seen someone rise from nothing and create real value. Months passed, and Olivia had changed. She was no longer the woman plagued by doubts. She was now ready to face any challenge ahead, because she knew that every step was an opportunity to prove herself. That evening, Olivia stepped out of the building, her shoulders still carrying the weight of a long and demanding day. The cold night breeze brushed against her skin, and she was about to pull her coat tighter when an unexpected voice called out from behind her. "I can't believe it. Is that really Olivia?" She froze for a moment before turning around. A man stood there, his eyes filled with surprise and a hint of disbelief. It was Daniel, a familiar face from the past. Someone who had once worked the same security shifts with her. Daniel? Olivia narrowed her eyes slightly, trying to confirm. Daniel chuckled and stepped closer. My God, how many years has it been? The last time I saw you. We were still checking bags at the security gate. What are you doing here? Olivia smiled, crossing her arms. Oh, nothing much, just overseeing a few national security projects. Daniel's eyes widened. Come on, Olivia, I heard you work directly with the president. That's nothing much. Olivia laughed, but deep inside, she could feel a significant change within herself. She had come a long way from being an ordinary security officer to her current position. No longer was she the girl struggling to find opportunities, now she was the one creating them for herself. But just when she thought she was finally settling in, a new challenge emerged. A few days later, Olivia received an urgent call from the president's office. When she stepped into the meeting room, she saw President Trump standing in front of a large strategic map. His expression serious. Olivia, he spoke, his gaze sharp. We are entering a critical phase. I need you to oversee the largest security reform project in a decade. She looked down at the stack of documents on the table. Dense lines of text detailing security plans, system schematics, and risk reports made her fully grasp the weight of this assignment. This wasn't just another job, this was a turning point. This won't be easy, Trump said, his voice steady, but if anyone can handle it, it's you. Olivia took a deep breath and slowly nodded. I won't let you down. In the days that followed, she threw herself into work like a tireless machine. Meetings stretched late into the night. Countless plans had to be meticulously reviewed down to the smallest details. She collaborated with top experts, analyzing every vulnerability, ensuring that not a single oversight would be allowed. But the pressure kept mounting. There were nights when she sat alone amidst towering stacks of documents, feeling as if she were swimming in a vast, turbulent ocean with no shore in sight. Am I truly capable of this? That question kept echoing in her mind. Late at night, the office was so quiet that Olivia could hear the ticking of the clock. The glow from her computer screen cast shadows across her face, reflecting the tension in her eyes. Pages of dense reports were spread across the desk, but no matter how thoroughly she reviewed them, she couldn't shake the creeping anxiety in her thoughts. The soft creak of the door startled her. Looking up, she saw President Trump standing there, his sharp eyes observing her for a moment before stepping inside. Still working? He asked, his voice deep but laced with concern. Olivia sighed lightly and nodded. I need to make sure everything is perfect, but I'm not sure if I can handle it all. Trump pulled out a chair and sat across from her, resting his elbows on the table. Olivia, do you know what all successful people have in common? She looked at him, waiting for an answer. They are not people who have never made mistakes. They are the ones who dare to face failure and refuse to let it define them. He leaned back, his gaze unwavering. You have worked hard to earn this position. Don't let doubt destroy what you have built. Those words were like a beam of light cutting through the fog in Olivia's mind. She had fought to be here, had overcome challenges that many others might have given up on. She clenched her fists, nodding slowly. Thank you. I won't let fear hold me back. In the following weeks, Olivia worked tirelessly. She assembled her team, scrutinized every detail of the plan, and inspected every security system to ensure that no vulnerabilities were overlooked. Each day was a race against time, but instead of letting the pressure crush her, she turned it into motivation to push forward. Then, the critical moment arrived. The new security system was implemented. Protective measures were upgraded, and every test exceeded expectations. When the final inspection was completed, the atmosphere around her erupted in relief. Trump personally came to see her, a satisfied smile clearly visible on his face. You did an outstanding job, Olivia. I never doubted it. A deep sense of pride filled her chest, not just because of the president's praise, but because she knew she had pushed past her own limits, proving that she truly deserved this role. This wasn't just an achievement, it was a milestone that opened the path to even greater challenges. New heights she knew she was fully capable of conquering. Standing by her office window, Olivia gazed at the city stretching beneath the brilliant night lights. She reflected on the journey she had taken, from the days of struggling with the meager salary of a security officer to now, holding the power to influence critical policies. But what made her proudest wasn't the position she had reached. It was the way she had inspired and uplifted those who came after her. She had seen the uncertain eyes of young employees just starting their careers, unsure if they could go far. Now, those same individuals shared with her their dreams, their aspirations, because they saw in her a living example that no barrier was impossible to break. The lessons Olivia learned didn't come only from success, but also from failure. From the moments she had almost fallen, she knew the road ahead would be full of challenges. But now, she was no longer the woman who once hesitated in the face of adversity. Trump had once told her, "A leader is not defined by titles or power, but by how they inspire others to become better." That statement was deeply engraved in Olivia's mind. The vast night sky ahead seemed to symbolize the countless opportunities waiting for her. She didn't know where the future would take her, but one thing she was certain of: she was ready to embrace every challenge. Ready to write the next chapter of her journey. Olivia took a deep breath, feeling the cool night air streaming in through the window. Her life had never been a straight path. It was a journey filled with twists, obstacles, and moments when she thought she couldn't go on. But she had made it, and more than that, she had become a source of motivation for those who once believed they had no chance to rise. Looking back, she didn't just see how much she had changed, but also how those she had mentored had transformed. That was her greatest pride, a legacy not measured by titles or status, but by the impact she had made in the lives of those around her. And the journey was far from over. Tomorrow, new challenges would arise, but Olivia knew she would not falter, because she had learned the most important lesson of all: perseverance, determination, and the desire to rise would always be the guiding light for those who dared to dream. Sparkles, do you feel inspired by this story? If so, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel to enjoy more meaningful stories. Sparkles. Loudspeaker note: this is a fictional story created for entertainment purposes and to convey positive messages. Any resemblance to real people or events is purely coincidental. Thank you for watching. Sparkling Heart.